My wife mocked my antique hunting. Now she's furious I took the best pieces when I left. I'm Daniel, 46, and I make my living in the world of antiques. Flea markets, dusty estate sales, high-stakes auctions in Europe, that's my element. I can spot a real 19th century Louis Vuitton trunk from across the room, and I've haggled with guys in open-air bazaars who'd sell their own shirts for the right price. My life is always in motion. But for 17 years, there's been one constant, my wife, Claire, 42. She was the home I always came back to, elegant, warm, always smiling when I walked through the door. While I was off chasing rare finds, she kept our place cozy, filled the freezer, watered the plants, and made sure I knew I was missed. Or at least, that's what I thought. My parents adored her. My sister Megan used to joke that Claire was too good for me. And yeah, I believed it. She was beautiful in that polished, quiet way that turns heads without trying. I told myself I was the luckiest man alive. But about a year ago, something shifted. Little things. She started dressing up more, even when she claimed she was just running errands. She picked up yoga classes with friends I'd never met. She laughed at texts she wouldn't show me. I chalked it up to her finding herself. After all, I was gone a lot. I told myself not to be insecure. Turns out I should have been. About 6 months ago, I was at an estate sale in a nearby town. I was digging through a display case of jewelry, just doing my usual scan for anything rare, when something made my stomach drop. It was a gold Art Deco bracelet with emerald inlay, unique, in perfect condition. And it wasn't just any bracelet. It was the bracelet I'd given Claire for our 10th anniversary. I'd bought it in Paris at a dealer I knew personally, wrapped it in silk, and told her it was something that would outlast both of us. I asked the seller where he'd gotten it. He told me he bought it last month from a guy named Eric, one of his regular suppliers. Eric wasn't a name I knew from the antiques world. But the seller, a chatty type, mentioned that Eric lived just a few streets over from me. My brain tried to come up with innocent explanations. Maybe she'd lost it, and it ended up in a pawnshop. Maybe she'd sold it without telling me because she felt guilty about money. But deep down, I knew exactly what this was. And that knowledge sat like a brick in my gut the whole drive home. I didn't rush home and confront her. Not yet. If Claire had really sold that bracelet to some random guy in our neighborhood, I needed to know why, and I needed to know who he was to her. So, I played the long game. A week later, I told her I'd gotten a last-minute lead on a rare Tiffany lamp coming up at an auction in Paris. She lit up immediately. Paris again? You're so lucky, she said, kissing me on the cheek but not quite meeting my eyes. I packed a small overnight bag, tossed it in my truck, and drove, exactly 8 miles to a cheap motel on the edge of town. From there, I parked my truck behind a strip mall near our street, where I had a clear view of the house. For the first 2 days, nothing. Just her leaving for yoga, and coming home with takeout. I almost convinced myself I was paranoid. But on the third night, right around 8 p.m., a dark blue BMW pulled into our driveway. Eric. I didn't need to be told, I knew. Claire answered the door in a silk robe I'd bought her in Florence, holding a bottle of wine. She glanced down the street once, then let him in. And just like that, the bottom fell out. I sat there for a good 10 minutes, engine off, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Part of me wanted to just drive away, pretend I hadn't seen a thing. But the other part, the part that had been quietly collecting doubts for a year, needed to end this. I parked 2 houses down, walked up the driveway, and let myself in with my own damn key. The first thing I noticed was the music, low jazz, the kind she only put on for special occasions. Then the smell of red wine and something else, her perfume. That intoxicating mix I used to love but now made my stomach churn. I followed the trail, literally. A tie draped over the banister. Her robe belt on the floor. My pulse was in my throat. When I stepped into the living room, there they were, Claire straddling Eric on the couch, both of them half-dressed, her head thrown back in a laugh I hadn't heard in years. For a moment, nobody moved. Then she turned, saw me, and instead of looking guilty, she rolled her eyes. Daniel. Seriously? Were you spying on me? Like I was the one in the wrong. I just stood there for a second, taking in the scene. My wife half naked on our couch, some guy smirking at me like he just won a game I didn't know I was playing. Spying? I said. My voice was calm, which surprised me. No, Claire. This is called coming home. She pulled the silk robe over herself and sighed, like I was interrupting her favorite TV show. You were supposed to be in Paris. Yeah, I said. I was supposed to be in Paris. Instead, I found the bracelet I gave you for our anniversary at an estate sale. The seller told me who sold it to him. Guess who lives 3 streets over? Eric had the nerve to shrug. Look, man. I cut him off. Don't. Just don't. Claire's face hardened. You're overreacting. You're gone half the time, Daniel. Do you expect me to just sit here twiddling my thumbs while you chase dusty furniture around the world? I stared at her, this woman I'd built my life around, and realized she didn't even care if I knew. She already justified it to herself years ago. Something in me just shut off. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I didn't even look at Eric again. Instead, I said, "We're done, Claire." She blinked, then scoffed. Oh, please. You'll cool off and realize you're being dramatic. No, I said, and my voice was so steady it almost scared me. I'm not staying in a house where the person I love treats me like a placeholder. You can keep it. Keep everything. That actually made her pause. Everything? Yeah, I said. The house, the furniture, the car. I'll take what's mine, and trust me, you won't even notice what's missing until you try to sell it. Her eyes narrowed. She knew exactly what I meant, the antiques. The ones she never understood the value of, the ones worth far more than the flat-screen TV or the leather couch. Fine, she said, crossing her arms. Go. See if you can find someone who'll put up with your constant traveling and obsession with junk. I didn't give her the satisfaction of a comeback. I just turned and walked out, my mind already shifting from heartbreak to planning my exit. I came back the next morning while she was at yoga. I moved quickly. Years in the antiques world had taught me how to pack valuables without a trace. The Louis XIV desk from that estate in Marseille? Mine. The 18th century clock she thought was just decoration. Mine. The signed Tiffany lamp I told her was a reproduction. To keep her from bragging about it? Definitely mine. By the time I was done, the truck was full. From her perspective, the house still looked intact. The sofa, the TV, the generic decor all remained. But the real value? Gone. I left my house keys on the kitchen counter with a note. Claire, you've got your freedom. I've got mine. Enjoy the furniture. No explanation. No dramatic goodbye. Just a clean break with a sting she'd only feel when she tried to cash in. That night, I checked into a small inn 2 towns over. I sat in the quiet, surrounded by pieces I loved, and felt the first flicker of satisfaction cut through the grief. She thought she'd taken everything from me. She was wrong. It didn't take long. 3 days later, my phone lit up with her name. I let it go to voicemail. 10 minutes later, a text came through. Very funny, Daniel. Bring my things back and we can talk like adults. I didn't reply. An hour later. Do you have any idea what you've done? Those are worth thousands. You can't just take them. Oh, but I could. And I had. By that evening, she switched tactics. I overreacted. We should talk. Maybe we can fix this. I actually laughed out loud. This wasn't about love, or even guilt. It was about the fact she just realized the most valuable items in that house were gone with me. The calls kept coming for a week. Then, one day, they stopped. No apology. No confession. Just silence. and that silence felt better than any closure she could have offered. Once the calls stopped, the quiet hit me like a brick wall. At first, I thought I'd feel liberated. And yeah, part of me did. No more second-guessing where she was, no more fake smiles when I walked in the door. But there's something about losing the person you built your routines around, even when they were toxic, that leaves you adrift. The mornings were the worst. I'd wake up in the inn to the sound of gulls outside, roll over expecting to hear her in the kitchen, and instead find nothing but an empty room and my own breathing. Food lost its taste. Music felt flat. I couldn't bring myself to go to the markets or auctions, because every time I walked into one, I'd picture her reaction to my finds, the fake enthusiasm, the half-listening nods, and it made me feel stupid for ever thinking it was shared joy. It's a strange kind of grief, mourning the life you thought you had, while knowing the real thing was already dead years ago. I was surrounded by beautiful antiques, but inside, I felt hollow. About a month after leaving, I got a call from an old contact in Lisbon. He'd come across a private collection being liquidated, rare maritime pieces, early navigation instruments, some 17th century maps. The kind of haul I lived for. My first instinct was to say no. The thought of traveling without the comfort of coming home to someone felt empty. But then I realized that comfort had been an illusion for years. So I booked a ticket. Lisbon was like stepping into sunlight after being locked in a basement. The air smelled like sea salt and grilled sardines, the streets wound like a maze of stone and tile, and everywhere I turned there was something worth finding. The collection didn't disappoint. I walked away with a brass sextant in pristine condition, a pair of 18th century Portuguese chairs, and a ship's log that hadn't been opened in over 100 years. And here's the thing, for the first time in ages, I didn't imagine showing them to her. I didn't think about whether she'd fake interest or make a sarcastic comment. It was just me and the pieces, the way it used to be. It felt pure. On my second day in Lisbon, I wandered into a small antique bookstore tucked into an alley near the harbor. Floor-to-ceiling shelves, the air thick with dust and history. Behind the counter was a woman, mid-30s, sharp eyes, dark hair pulled back loosely, a little ink smudge on her cheek like she'd just been sorting through old documents. She looked up from a leather-bound ledger and smiled. "Tourist or collector?" she asked. "Both," I said. "Depends on the day." Her name was Sophia, and she was a historian specializing in maritime trade. We ended up talking for over an hour about ship routes, rare finds, and the way certain objects carry stories no museum plaque could ever capture. Not once did I feel the need to downplay my excitement, or explain why I cared so much. She got it. She even laughed when I told her the lengths I'd gone to in the past to track down a piece, because she'd done the same. When I left, she handed me a card with her number on it. "Call me before you leave Lisbon," she said. "I might have something you'll want to see." For the first time in months, I walked away with a genuine smile, and it had nothing to do with revenge or survival. 2 days later, I was sipping espresso at a cafe near the market when my phone buzzed. It was Sophia. "I think I've found something you'll like," she said, her voice low, almost conspiratorial. "Meet me at the shop in an hour." When I got there, she had a long wooden case on the counter. She undid the clasps and opened it like she was revealing a secret. Inside was a 17th century Dutch astrolabe, brass, intricate, still bearing faint etchings from its original owner. My hands actually trembled when I picked it up. "Sophia, this belongs in a museum." She smiled. "It will. But first, it belongs with someone who can appreciate it." We spent the rest of the afternoon cataloging the piece, poring over old shipping records to trace its journey. At some point, she brought out a bottle of Vinho Verde, and we drank while trading stories about our best and worst finds. It was easy. No performance. No sharp edges hidden in sweet words. Just two people who spoke the same language, the language of passion for history, for preservation, for finding beauty in what others overlook. When I walked her home that night, there was no pressure, no expectation. Just a quiet, mutual understanding that we'd both found something worth holding onto. When I flew back to the States 2 weeks later, my carry-on was heavier with the astrolabe carefully packed inside, but my chest felt lighter than it had in years. Coming back used to mean bracing myself. I'd walk in the door, half expecting a cold shoulder, a snide comment, or some subtle reminder that my life's work was just junk hunting in her eyes. This time, I unlocked the door to my small rented apartment, set my bags down, and was greeted by silence, the good kind. No tension. No waiting for the other shoe to drop. Just my space, my finds, my life. I unpacked slowly, savoring each piece. When I placed the astrolabe on my desk, I didn't imagine her rolling her eyes. I imagined Sophia's quiet smile, her excitement when we pieced together its history. For the first time since leaving Claire, I didn't feel like I was starting over from nothing. I felt like I was building something new, and this time, it was mine alone. About a month after I got back, I was sorting through some auction listings when an email popped up from an address I didn't recognize. It was Claire. No hi or how are you? Just, I saw your name in the Lisbon Maritime Chronicle. Guess you found someone to play antiques with. Don't forget who kept things running while you were off chasing toys. I stared at the screen, waiting for the anger to rise up, for that old reflex to defend myself. But nothing came. Just this dull, almost amused disbelief. She was still trying to rewrite history, still framing herself as the long-suffering wife, ignoring the fact that she'd been sleeping with a neighbor while I was busting my ass across the globe. I didn't reply. I archived the email, blocked the address, and went back to my listings. That little ping from my phone no longer had the power to pull me out of my day. She wasn't in my head anymore. And that, I realized, was the real victory. If you told me a year ago I'd walk away from my wife, my house, and the life I thought I'd built, I would have laughed. I thought love meant staying, no matter what it cost me. Turns out, staying was killing me. Here's what I've learned. If you're scared to confront someone because you might lose them, ask yourself, what are you really losing? If they're already betraying you, lying to you, making you question your own worth, you've already lost them. The only thing left to lose is yourself. Walking out with nothing but my antiques and my sanity was the hardest thing I've ever done. But it gave me something I hadn't felt in years, the ability to breathe without checking the air first. Now I travel for me. I find treasures for me. And if I choose to share that life with someone, maybe Sophia, maybe someone else, it'll be because they add to it, not because I'm afraid of what happens if they leave. So to anyone reading this, sitting in a quiet house wondering if they're crazy to suspect the truth, you're not crazy. Trust your gut. And if it tells you to run, don't pack light. Pack your self-respect. I have many other stories. Go to my channel, subscribe so you don't lose us. Give me a thumbs up.